podcast where you get practical, no BS insights on how to grow yourself and grow your career. On this episode, we are talking to my friend Tashana Thompson. Tashana is the founder and CEO of Beyond Business Solutions. She is also a brilliant fractional CFO and marketing strategist. Welcome, Tashana. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be with you.
I am particularly excited for this topic today. Our topic today is career success through values alignment. And you have lots of different angles to talk about this through. But why don't you start by just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So, again, I'm Tashana Thompson. I am the CEO of Beyond Business Solutions, and we are a 16-year-old marketing agency serving women led organizations. We serve as their external marketing team, helping them to increase their visibility and revenue, which we all want, right?
Absolutely. We all want that
We
more
all want
revenue.
that. Yeah.
That's awesome. So usually we start out with to tell with people for, oh my gosh, wow, it is a day. Let me start
We're
that over.
together. We're good.
So usually we start by having people tell their stories, their what we call the A to B story. So where they started in their career and how they got to where they're at. So I'd love for you to tell us that story.
Of course. Um, Nearly 17 years ago now, I was working as a director of education for trade associations and not for profits. And I got to a point in my career where I was finishing up my MBA and I just wasn't happy.
Mm,
And I was in my mid 20s. And I say that there's a little bit of childlike innocence and ignorance that really gave me the courage to um, change the trajectory of my life, right?
mhm,
And I was unhappy. I was really overweight, really getting sick in my body. And I was young, in my 20s, right? So
mhm,
I decided that I was no longer going to do that and I was going to leave that organization. And the rest is kind of history, right?
mhm,
Um, that particular place ended up being my first consulting client. And then I got others and others and others. And, here we are 16 plus years later of doing this work. And many transitions have kind of come, as you can imagine, from that nearly 2 decades of leaving one organization and beginning this company. So that's the origin story of really that's the first really telling point of this values alignment and
mhm,
really searching our hearts for what is going to make us happy in the long run.
mhm.
And thankfully, I had the benefit of, being single and not having children. So I wasn't making a shift that was going to impact a lot of other people, although I did have a mortgage. Um, um,
Oof.
so that made it a bit easier. But again, it's like the childlike faith to say,
Mm.
hmm, I don't know. I'll just jump. And
Right,
it's
right.
worked. It's really worked.
So I love that you talked about that faith, like having faith in yourself, having faith in those values. So tell me, what was that massive shift that took place for you that made you see things and made you realize you needed to do things differently? Was there like a particular moment or was it just a realization over time?
I think that it was a realization over time, but when things begin to impact your health, whether it be mental, physical, emotional, I think we have to take a different look at
Mm,
it. And it really was beginning to manifest in my body, like the level of discontent. And, like I said, I was like pre diabetic, I was the heaviest I've ever been, just miserable.
mhm,
And I was like, okay, what's happening here? I began to
mhm.
kind of become curious and explore. And what do I really want for myself?
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Do I want to sit in traffic for 2 hours every day?
Yeah, no, thank
Those are
you.
questions you have to ask yourself.
Yeah.
Um, and do I want to be in an environment where my work feels undervalued, underappreciated, where I feel like nothing that I do is good enough?
Yeah.
And, you have to ask yourself some tough questions.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
I can imagine there's probably been multiple shifts
Oh, for sure.
throughout your career. I mean, like you said, in your almost 2 decades of, really pursuing this values alignment, what were some of the other shifts that you really had to contend with to kind of keep you on track in this values alignment?
Right, right. I think that, we're humans. We're constantly evolving if we're doing the thing right. And we're not the same person that we were yesterday.
Mm,
And, right now in my organization, we are focused on serving women-led organizations. And early on, that was not the case. 5 years ago, that was not necessarily the case. And
mm,
there has been a coming out, if you will, of having to say, like, "I really enjoy working with women. I really believe that we have a special, unique set of challenges when it comes to being visible and marketing ourselves, and I wanna focus my efforts there." So
mm,
that's been a huge, values alignment here recently, post-pandemic that or, right during the pandemic, that has really been a major shift and has been a
wow.
newer thing that has been a bit uncomfortable for me,
Mm,
right? Um, Obviously, I am a woman, but when you go into spaces, especially when you're networking and you're doing the things
yeah,
and you're networking with a ton of men still, and, sometimes you feel like, "I still need to be doing business," like
yeah.
man, woman, child, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, and I don't want people to automatically discount me because, I'm, serving women-led organizations. So
Mm,
that has been a shift in perspective. That has been very much getting comfortable with sitting in that seat.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, that's been a very recent shift and an honoring of myself and my
Mm,
organization, um, and who we want to serve and how
yeah.
we wanna show up.
I think that's so interesting because you're right. There is a really unique set of challenges that are presented to women in business spaces. And, it's interesting that you really sort of stood up for that unique set of challenges and honored your own experience and the experience of others by standing up for this values alignment for yourself. How did you navigate the struggle of that, of those shifts that you've made throughout your career and, understanding what is and is not aligned for you?
I think that's a constant, again, evolution.
Mm,
I don't think it's a one and done type of thing. I think, again, as you evolve and you become more of yourself and
mhm,
you decide, what you want for your life and how you want to serve other people, how you want to be a blessing and what your purpose is. Um, It's constantly revealing itself, so it's not like one thing, it's not one
mhm.
switch that kinda turned and, "Oh, I'm here, and I'm perfect, and I'm gonna stay here."
Yeah.
Uh, it's an ongoing, challenge, if you will, to really stand firm in that and to be okay with not getting everybody's business,
Mm. I can
right?
imagine you had to fight with a lot of scarcity mindset in that, like a
Oh, for
lot of
sure.
fear.
And it's continuous. It's not like,
Mm.
again, a one-time battle and, "Oh, I've done it, and I'm gonna move on with my life now."
Yeah.
Like, you do, what am I leaving on the table?
Yeah.
And, you're a marketer. What do we tell our clients? You try to talk to everybody, you're talking to nobody. Um,
Exactly. Mhm.
and we have to be really careful with and I have to be with the finite amount of marketing dollars that we have and the finite amount of time that we have to show up in someone's feed or, have
Mhm.
them see our material. And we gotta be authentic because at some point you're gonna realize who we all are, regardless of if we're trying to put on a face to do the next thing. So,
Yeah.
um, but it's a constant and ongoing progression of, okay, I'm comfortable. I'm gonna wiggle in it,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? It's aligned to who I am.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah.
So I have a quick question about that idea of authenticity, because I
Mhm.
think, it is meant so many different things to so many different people, but I would just be so curious to understand, what has authenticity looked like for you and how you're showing up, even just like one-on-one with people, but also, in the broader scope of how you're portraying yourself.
Yeah, so, um, for me, authenticity is obviously a very overused word,
Yeah.
but we always find ourselves using it. But telling the truth,
Yes.
that's what it means for me, telling the truth. And I realize that people they know your truth regardless if you're telling it or not.
Ooh, wow. Yes.
Um, People can sniff when you're in a scarcity mindset and that
Oof.
you're struggling and um, and you're pretending,
Mhm.
you know. For me, authenticity really means that you're letting go of the need to pretend.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pretend that you have it all together, that puts to pretend like I could lie to you and say, "Oh, girl, I figured that out, and I'm so happy that we're only serving women," and I am, but
Yeah, yeah.
it's easy and I don't have but it's not the truth.
Mm,
That's not the
yeah.
truth. So in
Mhm.
order for me to be authentic, I have to tell you my truth.
Yes.
I may not curse all the time.
Yeah.
I may, kind of filter at times the way I tell that truth, but it's the
Mhm.
truth nonetheless.
Yeah,
And we have to
absolutely.
show up as our true selves. We don't have to, but when you choose to, you are not only freeing yourself, but you're freeing the people on the other end.
Mm.
You're giving them permission to do the same.
Yeah.
And, people are going to find out anyway. If I pretend to be a meek little flower and that's how I want you to perceive me,
Yeah.
you're gonna meet me in person and be like, "Oh god, who is this girl?"
Yeah, yeah,
You
absolutely.
know? It it's easier for everyone if we tell the truth.
Mhm,
If
mhm.
you see that I have a big, bold personality and I have color and blue nails and, like,
I love
you
it.
know that that's who I am.
Mhm,
So
mm,
when you see me, you expect that my brand is consistent, right?
yeah, yeah,
Um, but if I pretend to be something that I'm not, where are we?
right.
Where are we?
Yeah, and I think that that points to such an interesting thing about authenticity and about, values alignment, in that, like you said, people can sniff out if we're not being who we are, and
Yeah.
it becomes so much extra work,
Oh god, yes.
like extra wasted energy to try to pretend that you're something that you're not, and people are, like you said, always gonna figure it out.
Always.
Yeah.
Always, and you're not fooling anyone.
Mhm. Mhm.
You're really not.
Yeah.
You're not, and I think that that's especially as women, we have to put on our capes and we have to pretend that it's
Mhm.
okay and I'm not, um, in a ball of tears after this or, whatever the case may be,
Yeah, yeah.
and sometimes you just have to let the cape go and
Mm.
just be honest
Yeah.
about life.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I don't know if you've found this, but as I've tried to be more honest with my journey, like on LinkedIn and even just in person, and as I've tried to, show some of that vulnerability and really align with my values, it's attracted the right kinds of people to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, vulnerability, which that's a subject I love, um, really leads to connection. Our
Mhm.
story is all about connection. So
Yeah.
if you tell me what you're struggling with, I can say, like, "Oh, girl, this happened last year. Be encouraged." Like,
Yeah.
um, but when we try to pretend and I'm fine, not only do we rob ourselves of the opportunity to realign ourselves, reassess our values,
Mhm.
we rob others from joining us in community,
Wow.
right?
Mm.
So I can remember a quick story and aside.
Yeah,
I
please
can
do.
remember working with my very first coach, and she was wonderful. But I later found out that, she had overcome a lot of abuse and addiction, like a lot of things, right?
Mhm, mhm.
That would have been valuable to me
Mm,
during my journey, even though that wasn't necessarily my struggle.
right.
It would have been valuable to me to let me know that, wow, girl, you pulled yourself out of all of that. Surely you could help me get myself here. Like, and I think that sometimes we think that, oh, that's going to hurt my credibility. I
Mm,
can't tell this truth because people are no longer going to find me credible. Um, and there is some truth to that.
yeah.
Not to tell people your whole life story, but or maybe you do. But at the end of the day, the things that we go through are not always just for us.
Mm,
They're to be useful to other people, to service the community,
yes.
um, and to share our values so that other people feel comfortable sharing their own
Yeah.
and joining with us as we are all trying to create better lives for ourselves and those around us.
I love this idea of if you don't, share your vulnerability or share of yourself, you're robbing people of a connection with you. And I would say that even sort of extends to the level of branding, like with a company
Oh, for sure.
and with, I guess personal brands too, but like you are robbing people the opportunity to really connect with your personal brand. And I mean, this as a marketer, like the most powerful brands are brands that are backed by communities. Could you speak
Absolutely.
to that a little bit? What have you found?
Absolutely. Everything is about relationship. I call myself a relationship marketer. Um, is really about how do we over time cultivate this relationship, cultivate these communities, and as we're sharing of ourselves, we are able to do that. We're
Mm,
gonna find someone that's gonna
mhm,
lock arms with us and say, "Oh my god, I remember going through that," or, um, I'm there now. Can we talk? Can we grab coffee? Can we"
right.
whatever the case may be. Um, and it's just so important, there's so many brands that have really shared their values and personal brands, and I always think of Tabitha Brown. She's my
Mhm.
most recent example. She's a vegan, YouTuber that has really done went on to do Target partnerships and
Her show
Whole
is so
Foods,
sweet, her kids
and
show.
she's
I love
got
her
a kids
kids
show
shows.
that my daughter adores.
Yeah.
She has really been very clear since she came out that she's a God girl, that she's a
Mhm.
vegan, that she's really about holistic health, and we bought into it. And
Yeah.
she's shown up with her Southern accent and
Mhm.
her bold personality and wearing her sneakers with the dresses, which I love and adore. I appreciate.
Yes.
Um, you know, so we have the courage and think about all the people, the millions of people that have rallied around her in the last 5 years,
Mm. Yeah.
and the impact that she's been able to make.
Mhm.
And not only the impact, but the money she's been able to make for herself. We want to make money too, right?
Right.
Um, by sitting in the fullness of herself. And that is one of the things that really inspires me
Mhm.
and holds me in my work, is that I am really giving women permission to show up as the fullness of themselves,
Wow.
to shine, to not hide. Um, yeah, and to share the goodness that they want to put out into the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you talk about sharing that goodness. And I love that you talk about allowing women to shine. I think as a creator for myself, and as I've started to build my personal brand with more intentionality, one of the biggest things I've been afraid of is shining. It's like that.
Yeah,
I think there's like a Marianne Williamson quote about it, and I can't remember exactly how it goes, but it's something about us, like that we're most afraid of our light and not our
yeah.
darkness. And I think, especially for women, I mean, in public spaces, when you really shine, oh man, do you become a target
Oh, for
for
sure.
everyone's judgments. And what would you tell someone who has that fear of, really kind of, and maybe they're not going to become a public figure, but maybe they have that fear of, posting on LinkedIn or really selling themselves when they're in a networking meeting, and talking about what they do or trying to, gain new clients. What would you say to that?
Yeah, so this is the challenge that 99% of my clients have when they come to me. Um, And no matter what station they're at, they're running multi-million dollar organizations,
Hmm.
and here they are.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
here the organization is as a result of their unwillingness to put themselves out there.
Oh, wow.
And I would say you have a brilliance within you
Mm.
that it's your duty to share.
Wow.
And it becomes selfish in some
Mm.
ways, which we as women really care about,
Yeah.
um, to hold it because you're scared that somebody's gonna say that you think you're all that. And literally, those are conversations that I'm having with high-powered women, right? That are leading these amazing organizations. Well, if I post, people are gonna think this about me.
Hmm.
And what I say to them is just tell them I told you to do it.
Yeah. I love it.
And literally, they blame it on me, which makes me
Yeah.
pearls, which I appreciate.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, you have to, at some point, revenue-wise, it's always a revenue shift to get to a certain space.
Yes.
They're like, "Ugh, I either gotta turn it up or ugh," you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
And the thing is, I think that so much of it is women, we're taught to be seen and not heard,
Yes.
and we're taught not to beat our chest like our male counterparts,
Mhm.
and we don't tell people how great we are, but we have to celebrate ourselves too. And sometimes you show up online too, initially by if it's hard for you to shine a light on yourself, shine a light on someone else.
Ooh, I like that idea. So how would you yeah, say more about that. That's interesting.
So a huge thing that I did in my business for many years, and we'll pick it up back up soon, is we did Women Crush Wednesdays, and we were
Mm.
highlighting other women in business and telling about their organizations, and not just our clients, like people that I admired in the ether, right?
Yeah.
Um, and that's a way to shine a light on other people and it not be about you, but you're posting, and those are some of the best posts I've ever put out there.
Yeah.
Um, and that you're showing that you care about you're cultivating community. Like who doesn't want to hear how awesome they are
Mhm.
randomly?
Yeah.
'Cause it was
Yeah.
always a surprise
Yeah,
when I
exactly.
tagged them and, um, so I think that there's ways to shine a light on organizations that are important to you.
Mhm.
I support a few that, I'm always talking about. So there are ways to dip your toe, if you will, into posting that doesn't feel so self-serving.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's amazing, talking about how, and not to be judgmental, but I love that you're taking this really compassionate end of, like, it is a little bit selfish to, like, contain your light because there might be somebody else there in the dark
Yeah.
that doesn't know what to do, and all they need is just that one little spark from you, and, it can be selfish to try to contain that and to keep that down.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
Yeah. For sure.
So I think, in terms of values alignment, that goal feels really lofty.
Mhm.
How could people apply those values to themselves? Like how would one go about doing that? Like, is there a framework that you kind of help your clients with, or is there a way of looking at things or thinking about things that you would that could help people?
Yeah, so I think it's about first identifying what you really want.
Mm,
And so many of us know what we don't want, but we don't know what we really, really want.
yeah,
We don't know what really lights us up. We we know our values kind of in a lofty over here type of space. So
right.
that's the first thing that I take my clients through. It's like, okay, what do we really want? Both personally and professionally.
Yeah,
And how do we get there? How do we create an organization around you that really gets you to that place?
yeah,
And that is really the first step. Um, because many of us, I know that I don't want to go sit in traffic. I know that I don't want to have a boss that I get anxiety every time I saw my phone ring. Or I
yeah,
know I don't want, we've all been there. Um, you know what you don't want,
yeah.
but you don't know what you do want.
Hmm.
And what you focus on draws to you, you attract. So the more you focus on what you don't want, the more you're gonna have it.
Mm,
So we really got to get clear about what do we want and go from there.
I love that you talk about the more that you focus on what you don't want, the more you're gonna have it, and I think it's not in this, like, woo-woo-y sense, it's in, like, a I don't know, it's like that phenomenon every time, I don't know, like when you get a new car, you
Yep,
start seeing that same, your new
for
car
sure.
everywhere, or like, if somebody mentions like a pink elephant, like it comes to your mind immediately. It's just the way that our brains are wired, this pattern recognition. And so if we're only thinking about what we don't want, the only patterns we're going to be able to recognize or draw to ourselves are the things that we don't want.
Absolutely.
I think that's such a wise way of looking at it. So what does, alignment in relationship, because you talked about how you're a relationship marketer, which I love that term. I think it's underused and underutilized. And I think, marketing really is developing a relationship at scale. So tell me about that. Tell me about the real power of the ROI.
Yeah, so I think that when we're able to be invested in creating long-term relationships with people,
Hmm.
um, and and I understand that, that's kind of that feels lofty, that feels big, and it's in us to want to be transactional,
Yes.
right? And often have a need. So I'm not naive to that,
Hmm.
to close the sale, do the thing so I can get the money. But relationships and really creating and crafting and taking the time to cultivate true, authentic, I give a daggone
Hmm.
about you
Yeah.
outside of what you can do for me
Yes.
is such an undervalued and underutilized skill today.
Hmm. Hmm.
And taking the time to get to know people, and I'm going to a networking event right after you. I will not be able to build authentic connection with all the 50 women there, but I can have a goal in my mind and in my heart to go into that room with the intention that I'm going to find 3 women that I can connect with.
I love that.
Regardless if they can serve me or become a client, I'm going to find 3 women.
Yeah. Hmm.
And every organization or every event that you go into with that mindset, like, who can I build connection with? And who can I serve?
Yes.
Because sometimes, and it sounds very woo woo woo. And believe me, I like to make money. I do make money. But when you are giving that type of energy out, it always comes back to you.
Yes.
Always. So
Hmm.
taking the time to really sit back and say, okay, I really like her. I really like her. I really like her. She and I both have daughters that have the same name, like, because that happens to me
Yeah.
often. And building connection and going from there.
Yeah. I think I love that you have a really practical goal behind that connection,
Mhm.
and part of that practicality is also like, how can I serve this person? One of the One person that I've networked with recently, one of the coolest ways that they told me that they can put themselves in that service mindset is that at the end of every conversation they have with a new person, they say something like, "How can I support you?" Or
Yes.
how can I help you? How can I build your initiatives?" And um, I just recently started doing that, and I feel like it almost takes people aback when you say
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
and it creates like a really powerful connection that is unexpected. Have you found that in
Oh,
your
for sure. That is every single conversation I have. That's the question that I ask.
Yeah.
And
I thought it was you that told me. I feel like it was probably you. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to take credit for it.
Okay.
But yeah, I was just having lunch with a colleague yesterday, and it was our first time meeting in person. And that was the first question because my mind automatically goes to who do I know that can really serve you?
Mm,
And not just from a like over time, like you're gonna have to build a relationship. They're not
mhm.
gonna, maybe do business with you today, but my mind automatically goes there. And
Yeah,
I think as women, we often tend to automatically go there because we're natural connectors.
yeah. Mhm.
And one of my clients always says, "How can I help you go further faster?"
Oh, I love that.
Oh, it's the
It's a
best thing.
beautiful way to
It's the
say that.
best.
Yeah.
And I am genuinely concerned with how I can help those that I come into contact with go further faster.
I think that's such an incredible way of looking at it. And because there are ways that, I've made leaps and bounds that maybe somebody else, 5 years behind me hasn't. And
Right.
I would love to have them not make the same mistakes that I have.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Uh, well, we're coming to the end of our time, and this has just been such a lovely conversation. I feel like I could just keep talking to you forever and ever. It's so great.
Likewise. Likewise.
So we usually at the end we end with just a couple rapid fire questions,
Sure.
and these are always real fun. So I would love to know, what is the most random job that you have ever had?
I don't think I've ever had a random job, but I will say that, when I was in high school, my first job was at a hotel. And I worked in every department in that hotel as an apprentice, so that was pretty cool.
That is really cool. I bet you
Yeah,
got so much cool experience in
I
the
did.
service area. I'm
Yeah.
sure you probably had some crazy stories. I mean, a hotel, that's a crazy place. Some crazy stuff goes down there. Well, you'll have to tell me some of those stories later. I love that.
Yeah.
So the last rapid fire question is, what is the worst career advice that you have ever gotten?
The worst career advice I got was from another woman when I was a young woman starting my MBA, and she said, "Don't go get any more education. Go work, and get ops experience and get paid, $15,000 a year and work 12-hour days."
No, thank you.
Yeah.
No,
That's
thank
what she had done. That's what she had done, so do it
I mean,
too.
just goes to show you that, your story is different from everybody else's, and it's important that
Mhm.
we own our stories. I mean, can you imagine if you would have done that? Ugh, it would have
Yeah.
been
No,
terrible.
thank you. No, thank you.
No, thank you. Well, thank you so much for joining me, and I wanna thank everybody else who joined us as well. If you wanna listen to this episode again, it goes live on all relevant podcasting channels next week. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and to like and share with friends who you think might benefit from this information. And join me next week at 8:30 a.m. on the Newly podcast, where you'll get more practical, no BS insights on how to grow yourself and grow your career. See you next time. Thank you, everyone.